Christmas movies are probably the most underappreciated subgenre in all of film. Most of the Christmas movies that get released are Hallmark schlock or just a paint-by-numbers product to incite the nostalgic feeling of Christmas. But when done right, a Christmas movie will be one of the few films that millions of people will re-watch over and over every single year and never get tired of it. It's hard to make a great Christmas movie. That's why even though so many Christmas movies get released each year, so few of them enter the classic Christmas movie canon. The themes and tropes of the subgenre are so necessary to what each of these movies are. So when one of these films separates itself from the rest, that is truly special. A Christmas Story is one of the most iconic movies of the genre. We all know this. But what you may not know is that it was directed by a man named Bob Clark. He not only made this family Christmas classic, but he also made another Christmas movie 9 years earlier. And this other one is just as good as A Christmas Story, but it's also one of the scariest movies ever made. Black Christmas is bone-chilling, and A Christmas Story is heartwarming, yet they both were made by the same man, and both embody everything amazing that Christmas cinema can be. Today I'll be taking a look into the similarities that bring these films together, the differences that separate them both, and even get into a conspiracy theory that's been floating around for years that states that one of the characters of A Christmas Story actually grew up to be the killer in Black Christmas. Bob Clark directed Black Christmas in 1974. This is not only a great Christmas horror movie, but it's also truly one of the best horror films ever made. It's often credited for creating the slasher genre, with many of the tropes and techniques of the film borrowed by John Carpenter 4 years later for Halloween. Black Christmas is legitimately frightening 49 years later, and setting such a harrowing tale at Christmas time was the perfect dichotomy. The warm illumination of Christmas decorations light each frame in a way where the killer could be tucked away in any corner, so you are always on edge as the viewer. And Clark uses the unique culture of Christmas to assist in the most gruesome of kills. The best scene in the film is a kill scene that cuts back and forth from a children's choir caroling to the killer brutally stabbing his victim, and the carols magnify the intensity of the scene so much. Bob Clark really used every piece of Christmas to his advantage here. And then 9 years later, Bob Clark returned to the holiday season, but in a completely different way. A Christmas Story is the quintessential family Christmas movie. The film perfectly captures the nostalgic feeling of Christmas morning. The comedy rides the timeless line of being funny and understandable for all ages. From the leg lamp to the bunny suit, the iconic imagery from this film has permeated the culture for years. On the surface, these two films seem like they have nothing in common other than the fact that they have the same director and both take place on Christmas. But let's take a closer look. Bob Clark used some of his same techniques and tricks for each of these movies, even if the subject matter is completely different. Comedy and horror are always linked because they're so similar. Both genres elicit physical reactions from the audience when done correctly, and the effectiveness of both scares and laughs come from the same format. No joke or scare will ever work without a good setup. Jump scares mean nothing if there was no suspense built up before it, and a punchline with no setup is just an empty laugh. A Christmas Story is essentially a series of vignettes that act as memories of the main character, and each of these scenes are perfectly executed nuggets of comedy, and it's put together similarly to the best kill scenes in Black Christmas. The atmosphere of Christmas is expertly executed in both of these films, but for two completely different purposes. A Christmas Story is essentially showing you your warmest memories. Even though not everything works out for Ralphie in each scene, the feeling of home and comfort is always present. And that is not the case with Black Christmas. The cozy Christmas feeling is present in the movie, but only at its surface. It's almost the lack of nostalgia that makes this so scary. These girls are living in a sorority house, and that is technically their home, but it's not their home. And once things start getting darker, the feeling that their loved ones aren't there to comfort them is very palpable, and it's so isolating. The scene at the end of A Christmas Story where Ralphie's dad ended up getting him the BB gun he wanted is so wholesome and nice, and there is none of that feeling in Black Christmas. In fact, you aren't even able to take a breath until after the closing credits are done. At their core, both films share a thematic emphasis on the human experience during the holiday season. A Christmas Story explores the universal theme of childhood innocence and the enduring magic of Christmas, while Black Christmas delves into the darker aspects of human nature and the vulnerability that often accompanies the festive season. Clark's commitment to exploring the multifaceted nature of the holidays unifies these seemingly divergent works into a cohesive body of work that resonates with audiences on different emotional frequencies. Both of these films are able to resonate with their audience emotionally, because the characters in both feel so real. The sorority sisters in Black Christmas act and interact like real college students, and the family in A Christmas Story is so iconic because of how well written and acted they are. Even if you don't have a little brother or your parents don't act like them, you still are able to relate to it because they're portrayed with so much reality. Now, speaking of the characters in both of these films, there has been a conspiracy floating around the internet for a few years now that states that one of the characters in A Christmas Story may in fact be the killer in Black Christmas, and that character is Ralphie's little brother Randy. Now this sounds crazy, and it is, but hear me out. A Christmas Story takes place in the 1940s, when Randy was just a kid, and 30 years later the events of Black Christmas happened. So Randy would be in his late 30s by the time Black Christmas happened. And if you ask me, that sounds like prime serial killing age. Maybe all of that psychological and physical trauma that he was going through in A Christmas Story forced him to go a little mad. The main connecting point between these two characters is their obsession with pigs. When Randy's eating in A Christmas Story, his mom playfully asks him to eat like a pig, and he proceeds to snort and eat like a pig in a weird way just for the attention of his mom.
How do the little piggies go? That's right! Oink, oink! Now, show me how the piggies eat. This is your trough. Show me how the piggies eat. You good boy. Show mommy how the piggies eat.
And the killer in Black Christmas would call into the house after each kill and say disturbing things to the girls, often doing weird voices. He would put on the voice of his own mother and act out her berating him, and even calls the girls pigs. So is it possible that Randy grew up to have some unresolved pig-related mommy issues? I mean, it's possible. Personally, I'm not buying it, but if somewhere in Bob Clark's messed up mind, he thought to link these two into the first ever Christmas cinematic universe, that makes me pretty happy. Just the fact that Bob Clark made both of these movies is so awesome. These movies give the viewer two completely opposing feelings, while both still being certified Christmas classics. You never really hear Bob Clark's name when people talk about underrated directors, but making two movies this good that are so drastically different in tone needs to be appreciated. These really are two of the most important American movies ever made, with A Christmas Story being one of the most watched every single year, and Black Christmas paving the way for a subgenre of horror films that would go on to run the genre for the next 2 decades. So the next time that you're trying to decide what Christmas movie you should turn on, I suggest doing a little Bob Clark double feature and getting the full range of what the best of Christmas cinema has to offer. Rest in peace, Bob Clark. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know down in the comments, what is your favorite Christmas movie? Also, let me know, is there any other topics you'd like to see videos on? This might be my last video on this channel of the year, but if you want to see more of my content, make sure to head over to my main channel, Def Goldblum, where I talk about everything underground hip-hop. As always, I want to give a special shout out to my patrons, and I got a lot more headed your way soon, so stay tuned, stay safe, and stay def. Thanks for watching.